Shalom, privyet, salut tout le monde, and welcome. So this is just going to be an update video, just to give you guys an update, because I haven't uploaded in like almost, 2 months, and I was supposed to be uploading the book, pretty fast, but things kind of went sideways. And I want to talk about just my experience, what I'm seeing going on, and I guess it's just corruption, right? And so pretty much what happened, um, and it's kind of everywhere. And what happened with me, so I started working at a logistics, like a transportation company here. And then um, there was a problem. And the problem is something that's very normal here in Eastern Europe and beyond. And it's something that I'm not really comfortable doing, right? So there's a lot of crime, I guess you could say, organized crime. And so pretty much, like, to sum it up, I'm going to play a video for you guys. I'm going to use my example to explain why we're going to lose our freedoms, we're going to lose our rights, probably going to lose our, you can fight the system. It's kind of like the right to bear arms, the right to, have firearms, guns, rifles. When the Constitution was being written, it was written for a very specific and highly moral people. And, before in the US or anywhere in the, people could carry guns around, there were no problems. But as time went on, like we're not the same people, is what I'm trying to say, is that when the laws were written for certain rights and freedoms, they were written for a certain type of people with a certain set of morals and values. And those morals and values are gone. And so when corruption takes over, it's like I find myself cheering for the other side, things that I would never, never agree with. I never thought I would agree with, for instance, the right to lose your rifles, lose your guns, or the right for the government to survey you and to lose your right to privacy. So I'm going to use my example as not to say that I'm in favor of losing your guns, losing your rifles, or I'm in favor of the government surveilling us. I'm not in favor of those things. I just want to, I guess, draw some parallels from the Bible, use my example of what happened to me just now. And the best way for me to do it is I'm going to play a little bit of a video to explain to you what's happening to Americans right now. And it's pretty much the Americans are being robbed blind. Probably tens of millions for sure. I would say hundreds of millions of dollars are being stolen from the United States. And a lot of it's coming out of Eastern Europe and beyond, Caucasian countries in the Caucasus and in Western Asia and stuff like that. So I'm going to explain to you what the company I was working for, what they were doing, the theft. And so pretty much I got fired. I got fired within maybe 3 to 4 weeks because it just wasn't a good fit. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to steal. I'm not a criminal. And so, it was best for us to part ways. It was mutual. Like, I wanted to go. There's no way I'm staying here. But at the same time, I find myself in a bad situation because I'm in a foreign country. I'm in Serbia. I don't feel so safe walking the streets now, like as I did before. Like, now I'm looking for people I used to work with at that company. I'm looking for the owner of the company. And unfortunately, this behavior is normal here. It's normal. But it's not just here. I'm just saying, like, in general, crime is becoming a normal thing. Okay, so we're going to do this update video, and then I'm going to try to do chapter 1. So I'm going to try to upload 2 videos today. But this is just to give you guys an update. And I don't want to mix chapter 1 when I go through the book with my update video. So this is just going to be a separate video. So we're going to watch a video 60 Minutes covered this already. So this isn't my company that I worked for, but every single company in Serbia, the Balkans, Eastern Europe, they're all pretty much doing the same thing. All right, so let's just watch.
Tonight, the results of an 8-month investigation into a dangerous scheme many Americans have never heard of, a scheme that may be putting all of us at risk on the road. Our investigation took us to truck stops in Florida and sources in Europe to examine what are called chameleon carriers, commercial trucking fleets often foreign owned and operated that shed one identity for another after racking up flagrant safety violations and flouting federal regulations. Our reporting focused on Super Ego Holding, a network of commercial trucking and leasing companies based in Serbia and the U.S. It's currently under federal investigation and named in a class action lawsuit. Regulators and former employees call it one of the most notorious chameleon schemes, a ticking time bomb on our nation's roadways.
Chameleon carrier.
Okay, so I'm just going to pause it there. So this is actually crazy because all of this, like this just aired maybe like a month after, 2 months, or sorry, a month or two before I started working at this company. And like, I would rather be poor. I could stay at this company and participate in the theft and the lying and live a very comfortable life where I am, right? But I can't do that. You see, and that's, I think, when you have conviction, when you have um and I'm not saying it's necessarily me. It's very much the spirit of God that dwells within me, you could say, is what's preventing me. Like I won't be able to live with myself if this is what I do, knowing what I know, if that makes sense to you guys. So it's not now. The problem here is once these guys bring you into their group, into their clique, and you now see what they're doing, and you're kind of like, well, I didn't sign up for this. Um, it's, I mean, it's not fun, right? It's not fun. And everyone's going to have to make that choice. Like, are you willing to sell yourself out? Now, if everybody just said no, you have that fear of God within you. Like, at the end of the day, the material isn't worth it. None of the material is going to follow you after you die. And another thing, just to go off topic for a minute, that material wealth, like nothing material is going to follow us into the next world, but the things we do and the things we say, how we chose to live our lives, how we chose to accumulate that material wealth. Well, that stuff is going to follow you. Okay. And that's what we're all kind of making wagers on. We're all placing bets right now. And I'm placing the bet that there is a God, someone built this universe. I believe in Christ. I believe in the message in the Bible from the prophets that uh, we are all cursed with death because of sin. And we have this amazing life lesson that we're all kind of being put through, like a boot camp, you can say. And we're being tested and tried. And that those of us who put our own survival, who are willing to do anything for material gain, stab each other in the back, lie, steal, cheat, murder, kill, whatever, go to war. Um, the people who do that are the ones who are, these are the people you need to feel sorry for. It's not the children in Gaza who are being bombed, or the kids in Iraq and Afghanistan, or the kids in Ukraine that we should actually be feeling bad for. It's the men who are dropping the bombs on these kids, the ones blowing their heads off, because biblically speaking, what's coming later for them is far worse. Those kids, yeah, from our perspective on earth, it's an absolutely terrible thing. God, why would you do that? But the reality here is their journey is done. They're out of this sick, twisted world. It was terrible for them for a moment, but I would not want to be the guys who drop the bombs on those. I would much rather be the kids getting bombed than the guys dropping the bombs and financing the bombs and saying, hey, bomb here. Those guys, I think, have it far worse than anybody once their time runs out. And I hope, that's my point. Their material matter was worth it. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not. It's not worth selling your soul and selling your morals and your values and your relationship and your connection with God for temporary material gain. It's just not worth it. And so we have to kind of make those choices, and actually also what happened was about a month ago, a little bit more, while I was working, someone very close to the group, in the Telegram chat, someone that I'm particularly close with, passed away, very unexpectedly, and if a good friend, her name's Tia, and Tia and Paul, and when I was talking with her husband Paul, without knowing it, he quoted King Solomon, and he quoted King Solomon in Ecclesiastes, where King Solomon is going over about how, so pretty much with the loss of his wife, Paul came to the realization that life can be over in a moment, and that he looked at all his material that he had, all the wealth that he had, all the wealth that his wife had accumulated, all her stuff, and you kind of have to imagine, maybe some of us, I've never gone through this before. I've lost a lot of friends and some family in my life, but I've never had to walk into someone's room or someone's house who just passed away, and it's now my responsibility to pack up all their stuff. And everything that they own and everything that they have is now there, and it's now up to me to figure out what to do with all that stuff. And so Paul didn't know he was quoting King Solomon, but was, and that was, what do I do with all this earthly stuff that, that just a moment ago, a couple hours ago, a week before, he never imagined how fast, unexpectedly, someone he loved and cared about, shared a life with for more than a quarter of a century, is just gone, and now he's got to deal with all her stuff. And he's like, how none of this stuff mattered. None of this material stuff mattered. The only thing that mattered was the person, was the soul that he had lost. And trying to wrestle with the fact that we selfishly wish that person didn't pass away, but at the same time, as Christians, knowing that that person is in a far better place. And the most selfish thing you could actually ever ask for is for that person to come back to earth and be with you. King Solomon says, blessed are the dead, not blessed are the living, or cursed are the dead. It says, blessed are the dead. Okay? That they are much better than those who are still alive, and those who have not yet been born, who have still not seen the evil work that is done under the sun or under the heavens. So I think until you go through an experience like that, you might see a nice house. You might, like, I struggle with this all the time. I'm 41 years old now, and I don't own a house. I don't own a car. I'm bouncing around. I've been bouncing around Europe for the last 5 years, dealing with consequences back in Canada, seeing my friends get arrested, seeing new content creators that I didn't even know who are in Canada trying to that we're doing the exact same thing. But I decided, well, if I'm going to continue, I can't do it from Canada. I need to leave my home. Well, these guys decided, well, we'll do it from Canada, and they're in jail. And this is the persecution that you're going to go through for telling the truth. But also, we have to wrestle with the fact that God is in control and God is in charge. And that's kind of where I'm going with this video, is that you can't cry that the Romans destroyed Jerusalem and the temple and burned Jerusalem to the ground and destroyed the temple and all that stuff. You can't cry about it because God did that. God is the one who sent the Romans into Israel, into Judea, and destroyed the temple, destroyed the Jews, and punished them. You can't get mad at the Assyrians for doing the same to ancient Israel, for coming in and destroying Phoenicia and destroying northern Israel and destroying the kingdom of it. Because at the end of the day, or the Babylonians, right? When the Babylonians came in and destroyed the Jews, the Bible says these were God's instruments, that God had specifically raised up. He calls Assyria my axe. I'm taking an axe. I planted this tree called Israel, and they became a disobedient, degenerate, immoral people. And so I am raising up Babylon. I am raising up Assyria, and this is going to be my axe to chop down these wicked, evil people, these spoiled people. And that's what, Europe, Christendom, that are we mad at the Muslims? Like, I don't like, Islam in my country. But I remember arguing with my friend Julie. We were in the metro station in Longueuil, back in Montreal, like on the across the river, the St. Lawrence River. And we were arguing there in front of, like, I don't even know how many people. And she was yelling at me in French and I was yelling at her in English. When we get heated, she was more French, and I speak better English than I speak French now. So we just switched. So you got me yelling in English, she's yelling at me in French, but we fully understand each other. It's just easier for us to argue in these languages. And so, and my point was, she was complaining about the Muslims here and the Arabs in Canada. And my argument was, well, why did we bomb their country? Like, how mentally retarded can we be that Islam was the enemy? George Bush would say, we gotta fight Islam and radicals and blah, 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 blah. But then in the same schizophrenic voice, Islam is a religion of peace. Let's bring them all over here. Like, think of how mentally retarded we are as a people. That we went and blew up a whole bunch of Muslim countries, blew up a bunch of, Arab countries, I should say. There are Christians in there and stuff, and a bunch of other religions. For the most part, they're Muslim, but think about that. I was trying to explain to her that as much as I hate the Muslims in my country, the Muslims haven't, like, the Ottoman Empire has been destroyed. The Arabs helped us. The Arab tribes helped us overthrow the Ottoman Empire, who had been plaguing us, Europeans, for hundreds of years. Raiding Europe, kidnapping European girls, young girls, selling them in for sex slavery, kidnapping young Christian boys, turning them into Janissary soldiers to die for Muslims. What the Ottoman Turks were doing to us was mind-blowing, like, when it comes to the level of evil. And the Arabs actually betrayed the Ottomans, joined the British, we fought side by side, we overthrew the Ottomans, and then we ended up stabbing the Arabs in the back. We stabbed all the Arab nations in the back who helped us overthrow the Ottomans. And we created the state of Israel, and we've created all this instability in the Middle East ever since. But anyways, my point is, as much as I don't like the Muslims in my country and the spread of Islam, why were our taxes going to invade and blow up their countries? And how did we let that happen? There has to be some accountability on our end for allowing our tax dollars and our leaders to go and blow up these countries and bomb these people who did nothing wrong. If anything, we're in the wrong. We're the ones who betrayed them. They never fought the Ottomans and agreed to create the state of Israel. Do you know what I mean? We fought side by side with them to overthrow an empire that had been plaguing us for hundreds of years, especially where I live now in Serbia. You know, the amount of battles, exactly where I live in Serbia too. You know, I live in a part of Serbia called Vojvodina, and this was the front line of the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the Ottoman Empire, you know, and I live surrounded by all the battles. This is the barrier, this land that I'm in right now. And so I'm just saying we have to take some accountability and look at both sides, okay? And the point is we need to make decisions, and hopefully we learn before it's too late and not make our decisions based on material gain. Because I'm going to tell you something, the material is going to stay here, and when you die, the only thing you're taking with you when you die are your actions and your words and what you did to accumulate your material wealth. So I'm going to just maybe play a little bit more of this just so you guys have an understanding. Hang on. All right.
To any of those promises?
Not at all.
60 Minutes spoke with 7 drivers who told us Serbia-based managers routinely skimmed hundreds to thousands of dollars off their pay in excessive fees for their lease, insurance, and repairs. The class action lawsuit calls it a scheme to defraud drivers.
I was coming home with negative amounts on my check.
Negative money.
Negative, yeah, it was in the red. I was doing around 600 to 800 miles a day with that company.
And you come home
with zero.
Yeah, I think that's it. So pretty much what they were doing, maybe this is it here actually, hang on.
Drivers also told us the company would shortchange them by altering delivery contracts or rate cons, which confirm how much a broker has agreed to pay to move freight. A percentage of that goes to the driver. Court documents show this rate con sheet on the left is the original. This fraudulent one on the right shows a cut of $700, resulting in reduced compensation for the trucker, a practice captured in this call between a dispatch.
All right. So yeah. So anyways, so pretty much what was happening here was, we would get a contract for a driver, to do a shipment, you know, and the contract would come into us, and we're the dispatch office. We're working with the freight brokers, and then every company in Serbia is doing this. I know maybe 1 out of 100 that isn't. Or in anywhere in the Balkans, you could say, or in a lot of these foreign companies, a lot of these foreign dispatchers. So logistics offices, what they're doing is they have a front office in America, but then the dispatching's done in another country. And pretty much what they're doing is they get the contract, they remove $1,000, $500, whatever, and then they Photoshop it and send the driver a fake one. And unless the driver actually goes and calls the broker and gets the broker on the phone and says, hey, can you verify the amount? Which a lot of brokers don't even want to do. They just want, because they don't want to cause any problems. They just want to get their product. They know that if they tell the driver the truth, there's going to be some problems. So now that might not say, okay, $500, $1,000, but when you do that every day to the same driver, well, now you've stolen what? Maybe $2,000 to $3,000 a week from him, right? And if you're stealing $2,000 a week from him, and he drives for 50 weeks out of the year, because a lot of drivers actually, believe it or not, they do drive 50 weeks out of the year. Well, that's $100,000 you just stole from that driver. All right. So when I saw this is what was going on at my company, it's like, well, I have to make a decision. And that is, well, I'd rather be poor than make my money this way. And so, and this happened like a month ago. I haven't uploaded. I mean, I left that company within 3-4 weeks of me starting. The moment I figured out what was going on, and I was only dispatching like company drivers. there's different types of drivers. There's drivers who get paid, 60, 70 cents per mile. They get paid per mile. And then it's contracted drivers who are owner operators. They own their own trucks and stuff. You can only do that with the guys who own their own trucks like this. So, and then I'm just like, I refuse to. So for the last month, I've been trying to figure out how I can do my own office, run my own thing where it's honest and legit, and trying to raise the money so that I can just get my own trucks going. Trying to think of ways that I can do that. So that's what I've been doing for the last month. Because I still like working. I like this job. I like working in logistics. I don't like depending on donations as much as I couldn't survive without you guys. You guys have been the people keeping me going and stuff. To be honest, I really wish that, because I could do this, you know, while doing videos and stuff. There's nothing, the Apostle Paul, he was a tent maker and he was an apostle. It's like, you could still have a trade. I think it's very normal for a pastor or a religious leader or a guy teaching. Yeah, you can have a profession, you can have a job, and then do this on the side, right? So I would still like to do that. Let me see. Okay. So anyways, what's my main point? My main point is, because of the criminal activity in all the offices here where I could work, I can't work. I can't have a job because I can't morally work like this. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to steal. I'm not going to cheat. So I'm going to choose to stay poor and to not work and to try to find another way to make money than to work for these companies. So now what's happening now as a result of this behavior? That's my point. My point is, the US government is fully aware of what's going on. The FBI knows what's going on. The FBI knows how many hundreds of millions, I think hundreds of millions. At my little office alone, we must have been stealing at least $1 to $3 million a year, and that's one small 25 truck operation here. So I can only imagine how much money is actually being stolen. So because of that, and I'm coming back to my main point now, what I started off saying, where I because of this behavior, the law is now coming down upon people. Okay. A quick example. I knew a guy, 20 years ago, and he was a criminal, right? He was a criminal, and he used to tell me about the good old days back in the 80s. He was much older than me. And he used to tell me how he used to fly from somewhere from Toronto, fly to Florida. From Florida, he would fly to Peru or fly to Colombia, buy cocaine for like $500 a kilogram, fill his suitcase with cocaine, fly back to Florida, fly back to Canada, sell it, and make a fortune. And he talked about how using the airplanes back then was like no different than getting on a bus. It was no one checked your stuff. There were no dogs at the airport, nothing like this. None of this surveillance system like that we have now. Just if you want to fly, even if it's within the nation, just nationally or internationally, is insane what we have to go through. And that's an example of our behavior. We are abusing certain privileges and certain rights that we have that now give the psychopaths in power the reason to restrict us from traveling, from using it to surveil us, right? And so I found myself in a weird situation because America is aware this is happening. In the next year, they're passing some very strict laws where, in order to work in U.S. freight and U.S. logistics, I think they're going to be implementing fingerprints, face scanning. You need to be working with your government issued ID connected to fingerprints, connected to a government portal login. And it's crazy because when I heard that, because of what was going on at the office, I started looking at new regulations that are coming out. I was happy. I was like, oh, well, I can't wait for that, because the moment that happens, every single guy at that office, and there's a trail, there is a paper trail. Like, it's not hard. The company I'm working at, nothing's going to add up. Do you know what I mean? There's a paper trail. There's the broker sent a contract. You could see that when the contract arrived at this office, the numbers got changed. The drivers only got paid this much money. There's a paper trail that exposes every single time these guys altered a contract. And it's all going through a financial institution, which, I mean, this is like, it can be up to 20 years in a federal prison for every count of wire fraud. You're also just fraud. You're changing the contract. You're wiring a fake contract. Like, this is serious stuff. And if these guys are tied by fingerprints, face scans, government ID to a government log, like, they would never be able to get away with this crime. They would never be able, they cannot be stealing these millions and millions of dollars from the American truck drivers. And it's crazy because it's like, on one hand, I'm anti-surveillance. I'm anti-government state surveillance and all this stuff. And, well, I don't want to give my face and my fingerprints or my DNA. I don't want to do any of that stuff. But because of the abuse, and this is Serbia, like, there's no, like, these guys are already making US salaries in a poor country, right? And so, I don't know, it was a weird feeling, because if they implement this system, like, a guy like me, I have nothing to hide. I'm not lying, I'm not stealing, I'm not robbing. What are you going to catch me for? I'm the guy who lost his job because I want to do the right thing, and I don't want to steal and lie to my truckers. I'm supposed to be the guy they trust. I'm the guy they call when they're in trouble. I'm the guy, it's my job to help them. That's what I'm paid for. I'm not paid to lie to them, steal, and take from them. So I got fired because I refused to lie, steal, and cheat the drivers. And now it's like, because of the FBI is aware of what's happening, and now the Department of Transportation and the Department of Justice are now partnering to stop this fraud. They have to, do you know what I mean? We just shot ourselves in the foot. So a bunch of Serbian guys, and I'm not saying Americans aren't guilty of this too, but I promise you it's a lot less, a much smaller percentage of Americans are guilty of this stuff. It's all coming from foreigners, from guys overseas. And what pisses me off is, it's like $2,000 in Serbia is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. At least 2,000 US is a lot of money. 2,000 Canadian, not so much. It's like a break even. But anyway, so it bothered me that even when these Serbian guys have US salaries, I mean, it's not so much the workers, the guys who own the company are enslaving the people. Like, if I were to tell you what is Serbia's greatest export, it's actually exploitation. Almost all my friends here, they work for Amazon, they work for Philip Morris Tobacco, they work for Mercedes, they work for top of the line companies. And where the guys in Germany might be making 2,000 to 3,000 euros, my friends doing the exact same work in Serbia are making 700 to 1,000 euros a month. And what's happening is the Serbs who own the companies, they open companies here. Philip Morris is paying them 3,000 euros to hire a Serb. The managers and the owners of those companies are pocketing the majority of the salary and paying the Serbs here pennies. So you get European quality work for African wages. So almost all my friends here are like enslaved, you could say. And the same thing was happening at my logistics office. A lot of the guys that were only making like $800 US a month, the owners were pocketing their US salaries from America while stealing from the drivers. It was just corruption everywhere. And almost every company out here is like this. It's just we do this to ourselves. There's no reason why the companies here can't be paying their employees more. There's none. They're just greedy. They extort their own people. They enslave their own people. That's it. Same thing at my company, everywhere. And so, anyways, I found myself like, well, I would have no problem giving my fingerprints, my face. I have nothing to hide. I'm not a thief. I'm not a liar. I'm not. And these guys, though, are in a lot of trouble. They have to think twice now before giving their fingerprints, their face scans, their government IDs, because it's going to be connected to all, not just their future contracts. It's going to be connected to all the contracts that they've been stealing from people. So we have a morality issue. We have a morality problem. And, we bring the law upon ourselves. I'm hearing a lot of people complaining about, oh, there's AI surveillance being put up and we're fighting against the machine. We're tearing down those cameras. Are you fighting the machine or are you fighting God? Do you know how many times I've been like watching a crime show and the only reason they were able to catch a serial killer or a murderer or whatever was because of a camera, a CCTV camera, or a DoorDash camera, or something like that? Do you know? There was a serial killer that was specifically killing people he had no relation to. I forgot his name. No relation to whatsoever. He would even go to random parts of the US just to kill someone random. So there was nothing connecting. There was. And the only reason they caught him was because of a camera, caught a glimpse of a car that he had rented. And they knew it was a rental car. And anyways. So I'm not for the surveillance world on one hand. But on the other hand, I don't have anything to hide. You guys can look at my computer. You want to attack me for defending Hitler. I'm more than willing to have a discussion, a civil debate on why, Hitler existed and why I don't think it's fair. Was Hitler perfect? No. But I'm not ashamed to defend my views and why I think how we treated Hitler was wrong when Winston Churchill, Joseph Stalin, and Roosevelt, in my opinion, were 1,000 times worse. Okay? So I'm not scared to defend Germany in World War II from the other monsters. Okay? So if that I'm not scared of that. I'm not scared to defend my views. They're scared of me defending my view. And that's why you get censored and that's why you get silenced. Okay? But I have nothing to hide, so it's like I'm not even scared of this surveillance state. Go ahead, watch where I go. Read my emails. Go ahead. What do I have there? You want my phone? Go nuts. I don't care if you look at my phone. Go ahead. I have nothing to hide. Right? So I personally don't care. And what I do know is that the moment this surveillance, this fingerprint, these new regulations from the Department of Transportation come in, I know these guys are in a lot of trouble. Like potentially 10 to 20 years in federal prison trouble. Some of these guys have US passports. So, anyways, it's kind of like also the revolution in Russia. I'm going to talk about that for a minute. This is kind of a long update video. But, you know, when I first started studying this stuff, I was so pro-Tsar, pro-church, so anti-Bolshevik. You couldn't imagine. And then, you know, the more I got into it, the more I really, really studied and tried to grasp the full picture. It's like, how do you get a country to revolt and rebel like that and literally burn the whole country down and murder everyone? How do you do that? If you tried to launch a revolution in the United States in the 1950s, nobody, even in the 90s, you might be able to pull it off shortly, soon. Okay? But the level of comfort and stability and a rich and thriving middle class, you could never launch a revolution. How do you do that? How do you get away with launching a revolution? How do you convince the Russian people who have been Christians at this point for 1,000 years? How do you convince them to burn down and destroy all their churches? How do you do that? And so I found myself no different than I am with my position at my job. See, if we were all immoral people, following the law, following what's right, there would be no need for fingerprinting, face scanning, cameras everywhere. You don't need that. Why would we need that? We all love each other. We do unto others as we would have done unto ourselves. We're honest. We're good. No. My old job my job is literally a job where the truck drivers depend on my honesty. They depend on me. And I at my office, there was no greater enemy to the driver than his dispatcher, than his motor carrier, than the motor carrier they were working for. You know? And I'm going to say the exact same thing in Tsarist Russia towards the end. There was no worse thing for the Russian people than the church. The Orthodox Church, by the time you get to Tsar Nicholas II, was no longer a church. The confessions, when you had to do your mandatory confessions to the priests, and let's say you expressed something, you weren't happy with the nobility. You weren't happy with the Tsar's decisions, because the nobility were in a lot of trouble. Sorry, not the nobility, the common people, the peasantry were in a lot of trouble. And the only man that was saving Russia was Peter Stolypin. He was the prime minister, and he was assassinated, I think, in 1911. And he was assassinated by a Jew, but a Jew who worked for the Tsar and worked for the nobility. He was part of the Secret Service, and we're not sure if he was a double, maybe even a triple agent. No one knows. The point is, the nobility wanted him dead. The revolutionaries wanted him dead because he was saving Russia. He was creating a thriving middle class. He was de-escalating the revolutionaries. People didn't. Why would you revolt if the government is providing you with every means you need to survive, to build a life, work hard, enjoy your labor, marry a woman, have a family, follow your dreams? Why would you revolt against that government? There's an unspoken, there is a spoken relationship between those in power and those who are not, the servants and the masters. The masters are only the masters because the servants are working. At any moment in time, whether you're in medieval England, Tsarist Russia, ancient Greece, the moment the peasantry start revolting, there's 1,000 of them to one of you. What are you going to do? And that's exactly what happened in the revolution. And the nobility were so evil and corrupt. Would you go to war if you're an American, if you're British, if you're European Union, if your current government told you right now to stand up go to war and fight and die for them? Would you? Would you go to war for the European Union right now? Would you honestly? Or if you're British, like look at what the British government is doing to Britain right now. Look at the state of the British people. Look at the state of Canada. Look at the immigration, the crime, the violence, the drugs. America, the same thing. Everywhere in the Western world. How mentally insane would you have to be to want to go and fight for these people who have done this to your people and country? That would be like joining the Russian Tsar. That would be like joining and fighting for the patriarch. If you were a Russian peasant and you went to confession and you told the priest, you know, I'm not happy with the way things are. I'm poor. You know, this noble seized my land, whatever. They reported that to the Secret Service. The churches were no longer churches. They were now outposts for surveillance, surveilling the Russian people. Why did the Russian people burn down all the churches? Why did the revolutionaries burn down the churches? Because the churches, a lot of them, the clergy were no longer priests. They were agents serving the Tsar for intelligence, spying on their own people who were unhappy. So if you've ever wondered why would I want to fight for a church, the Orthodox Church, when they're spying on me? They're violating the most private agreement between a priest and a man. You know, I mean, I'm not for confessing to priests. There's nothing in the Bible that says you need to do that. That is a strict, that for me, that's an insane thing. I confess my sins to God, to Christ, and to people who it matters. The people I wronged, I go and confess. Yeah, you know what? I did this to you. I screwed up. I'm sorry. Forgive me. You know, I don't need to go to a private priest, you know, tell him my deepest, darkest secrets. And so, but the people, Orthodox, Catholic, a lot of people think you have to do this. And so they go, and then the Tsar and the priests were using that against the people. And that's what sparked a lot of the revolutionaries, a lot of the people to join the revolution and to fight against and burn down their churches. So it's not so, oh, the evil Bolsheviks. Both sides are evil. Both sides, they deserved each other. And it comes down to like a Bible saying where don't go left and don't go right, straight is the path. You don't want to join the revolutionaries, and you don't want to fight for the nobility of Russia either. Neither left or right is good. Straight is the path, you know? And so I'm just using, you know, you might think you know something, or you might think you should have this view, but then something might happen. And then you kind of have to realize that God is really in control. Why would God allow Russia to be destroyed so violently and the church burned down so violently? Why? And then you go into it. You look at how insane the Tsar was, how stupid and petty and greedy. Would you really go to war right now for King Charles? Who would fight for this doofus? Seriously? This guy? Who would go to it? That would be like me saying, let's go to war for Tsar Nicholas. That's how the whole nation betrayed him, and why entire army regiments were turning on him. It wasn't for no reason, is what I'm saying. You can't just do that to people. If you in America now, maybe now you can get away with launching a revolution in the West. Now, you couldn't do this before. No, we had houses, we had cars, we had businesses. There was a thriving middle class. Now that's gone. Okay? There's no hope for us to ever own houses or have children or start up businesses or anything like that. Do you know? So, anyway, so that's what happened with me. This is just an update. I'm just kind of ranting and raving about. So I was gonna upload a second video today. I don't think I'm gonna have time, so I'll do it tomorrow. So I'll upload chapter 1 tomorrow. And I think we're gonna stop here. Also, I forgot to mention and thank Leon and Yana there are two people from the Telegram group who had actually helped me out enormously, and I forgot to thank them. And yeah, so anyways, guys, I hope that gives you guys something to think about. And again, where I want to live in a country where all the citizens are armed. When I look at the next generation of kids, when I look at the kids now, you know, I don't know if I want to live in a country where everyone is armed. When I'm seeing how people are behaving, I'm not sure I want to live in a country where there aren't cameras everywhere. And I can't believe I'm saying that. I can't believe I'm saying that. But we bring the law upon ourselves. And I wish I could say, I have nothing to fear when I go out. I have nothing to fear when I go out. But I know that because I wasn't willing to be a criminal, I lost my job. And not only did I lose my job, I pissed off a lot of people. And now, for the first time where I'm living, I don't really fully feel safe. I don't think anything's going to happen to me. But I know if I were to run into some of the guys I worked with, one or two of those guys, and they were drinking, there's going to be problems with us. And how much safer I would feel knowing that there was a camera on us when I run into those guys. And the only crime being committed here, other than, the crime why I'm going to get hurt is because I didn't want to be a criminal. I walked away from the crime. And these guys aren't happy that I now know what they're doing, and I decided to leave. And I don't want anything to do with it. And that in the future, by implementing new laws and new regulations and forcing everyone to submit to eye scans and fingerprint scans and government, portals and logins, and us losing our freedom is the only thing that gives me a job, and they will lose theirs. So the surveillance is a good thing for me because I'm honest and I have nothing to hide. Those guys are in a lot of trouble. Right? I don't know if that makes sense to you guys. And also, like I said to you, running into these guys in the streets. What happens to me if I run into these guys and there's like 6 or 7 of them? They've been drinking. What happens if there's a camera and there isn't a camera? If there's a camera, maybe they're going to think twice. If there isn't a camera, what's stopping them? Right? This isn't my country. This isn't my home. These guys are protected. So do you guys see where I'm going with this? So anyways, we're going to stop there. So I don't know how to feel about anything right now. I feel very torn and conflicted. My views are being challenged. Everything I thought I knew, gone. It's neutralized. Oh, let's fight for the whites. Let's fight for the czar. Really? I don't think I would. I wouldn't have joined the revolutionaries. But I'll tell you that knowing what I know now, I could see how a brainwashed youth back then would have fought for the revolutionaries. I can see it. They had no hope with the nobilities. They had no hope of owning property, no hope of owning a house. They were being cheated on all their labor. It's no different than today. So, anyways, guys, we're going to end it there. So I'm going to upload the next video hopefully tomorrow. So anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys are well.